Welcome to the Emily the Mystic Show. You're about to walk through a portal that leads to all things mystical, magical, spiritual, and supernatural. I'm your host, Emily. I'm a spiritual mentor, an Akashic Records practitioner and teacher, an intuition development coach, and a galactic channeler. If you're an old soul on a self-discovery and healing journey, you are in the right place. We'll be diving in deep to some of my favorite mystical topics, including manifestation, past lives, the spirit world, energy, and so much more. Get ready to embrace your inner mystic and live your most authentic life possible. The portal is now open. My beautiful listener, welcome back to another episode of the Emily the Mystic Show podcast. I am pumped that you are here today for today's solo episode, which is all about a concept that I get asked about a lot as an Akashic Records practitioner and teacher, and is something that I feel called to do a deeper training on and to do some more education on, because I feel like this is one of the cornerstones of a lot of our life's work here on this planet at this time. And I feel like is so freaking relevant because as you're listening to this episode, we are in the midst of a Mercury retrograde, a Venus retrograde. We're deep in eclipse season. So this topic is very relevant to you because it's definitely getting brought up during this energetic season that we are moving through. And that is the topic of soul contracts and cord cutting. So I'm going to get into it today because we're really talking about relationships in this episode and navigating all different kinds of relationships and seeing our relationships from a higher soul purpose. So as you know, if you have been listening to this podcast for a while, I work with the Akashic Records, which I'd like to describe as the multidimensional library of the soul. They give us a really high perspective of life here on planet Earth and help us make sense of and understand some of the things that can unfold throughout the course of our life that may be hard to understand, or that we may have emotional attachment to, or perhaps those relationships that we get triggered by, or those relationships that were really difficult throughout the course of our life, or the relationships that are really positive and loving and fulfilling and nourishing and nurturing. So in this episode, we're going to be breaking down through the lens of the Akashic Records just what soul contracts are, how to understand your own soul contracts that you have in this lifetime, how to do healing around those contracts, and cord cutting, and how that can be a really powerful modality that can support you in all kinds of relationships. So let's get into it. The more that I learn about this, the more I find it so fascinating because it helps us really get to know ourselves better at a soul level, and it helps us see that our relationships in this lifetime are so important for so many reasons. So let's start with just what is a soul contract? Well, a soul contract is an agreement that you have with another person on this planet that you decided before coming to this lifetime. So before we incarnate, we go through a period of planning and preparation in the astral realm and higher dimensional planes, where we work with different spirit guides, ascended masters, different beings of light, our loved ones on the other side, who help us prepare for the life that we are stepping into. So this life is very much by design and is not by accident. When you come here, you have a very detailed plan of what you hope to accomplish here, what you hope to grow into, what you hope to the impact that you hope to leave on this planet, who you hope to impact, how other people will impact you, the lessons that you're going to be learning. I have a whole episode on soul mission and purpose that I will link below in the show notes if you want more information about this topic, because there's so much there. But before I get too sidetracked into that, I want to really focus this episode around the relationship piece of your incarnation plan and how those relationships are framed way before you even chose to come here to this planet. So yes, that does beg the question, do I choose my loved ones? Do I choose a lot of my relationships in this lifetime? Yes, you do. You do choose your relationships. Now, I just have to say a quick side note on this before I get any further. I am a huge advocate for teaching that we choose our relationships, but we do not choose what happens within those relationships, specifically the negative, abusive situations that we can encounter, unfortunately, with people on this planet in this lifetime. So I'm not here to tell you that you chose trauma that you experienced at the hands of people who hurt you. So that's not what this episode is about. So I want you to just put that aside for a moment and allow yourself to be open to what I have to say here about soul contracts and how we choose our relationships and why. So we choose our relationships coming into this lifetime because we have a purpose for coming here. This life is very purposeful. We come here to learn lessons. We come here to grow. We come here to develop. We come here to change. We come here to transform, evolve, all of it. And our relationships play a very integral role in that path. We can't do this work alone. We're not here to come to this planet and live a full life alone, isolated. Well, maybe that's someone out there that's their soul contract in that life plan. But for 99% of us, we have to be in relationship with others in order to grow and change and learn lessons and develop, et cetera, et cetera. So before we incarnate, we choose what are called soul contracts, which are those agreements that are built into our incarnation plan, and that include the information about how someone is going to impact you and how you are going to impact them. And that information also can incorporate some of the different types of relationships that you are meant to have on this planet. So who is going to be a romantic partner, or who is going to be a family relationship? Who is going to be a friendship? Which relationships are meant to last most of a lifetime, and which relationships are meant to last for a season of life or for a shorter amount of time? Now, of course, ultimately, we do have free will. So I want you to also know that you have the choice and the decisions within your relationships around how you want to respond and how you want to show up in those relationships. So not everything is fated or destined or set in stone, although the relationships themselves are, and some of the higher learnings and lessons are, but how you choose to do them, how you choose to learn those lessons or go through those experiences, how you choose to respond to them, the emotional impact that those lessons and growth experiences have, that all is determined by you and your free will. So ultimately, you do have free will choice on how you wish to navigate these different relationships. And I know all of us can say that the relationships that we've been through, family, friends, romantic, etc., all of these relationships really shape the person that you are today. So relationships are such an integral part of our soul's evolution and help us with this journey and they help guide us, they help show us the way. And ultimately, the purpose of soul contracts is to help you lead. Ultimately, the purpose of soul contracts is to help lead you back to yourself and to help you become more of your most authentic self. And that's really what life on earth is about discovering who you are, discovering what you like, what you don't like,
and how you like to move through the world. That's a big part of what our purpose is here on this planet. So let's dive into a conversation now about the different types of soul contracts that we can have coming into this life, which I think you're going to find really, really interesting. So the first type of soul contract that we have are karmic soul contracts. So karmic soul contracts are going to be the relationships that feel intense and that have what you, in your human perception, experiences that you would deem to be more difficult or more negative. So these are the relationships that are going to be the lesson bringers to this lifetime. And ultimately, karmic soul contracts, karmic relationships are meant to be, they're meant to bring resolution to your past life karma. So these are people that you've known before in your past lifetimes. They can be family members, they can be friends, they can be teachers, mentors, coaches, bosses, all different type coworkers, all different types of people that you may meet throughout the course of this lifetime. And karmic relationships, karmic soul contracts are designed to help you heal from your past karma, to help you move through it, and to help you change the pattern. A karmic loop is it is a pattern that we get caught up in because of a situation or circumstance that happened in a past life. And ultimately, we come here in this lifetime to release the loop, to close the loop on a pattern, a situation, or a circumstance that we perpetuated in the past, and to choose differently, to decide differently, to finally learn the lesson and decide to move forward in a different way. So a really good classic example of that is a romantic relationship that is more of a toxic, unhealthy dynamic. So let's say in your past lifetimes, you always chose romantic partners who treated you poorly and they cheated on you, they betrayed you, they did things that hurt you. In this lifetime, maybe you attract a partner that's similar, that uses that type of behavior. Well, ultimately, your karmic lesson is to end the pattern, to step out of the toxic relationships, to own your self-worth, to decide differently, to decide that you deserve more in your relationships. So to close that karmic loop, you would need to stop dating that type of person and step away from relationships like that. So ending karmic soul contracts means that we have come to the conclusion and the awareness of how that relationship has impacted us and affected us. And we have decided to make a different choice, to step into a different pattern, to behave differently, to show up differently. And it's all ultimately about healing. So karmic soul contracts are going to be the most difficult because these are going to be relationships that pull up a lot of difficult emotions to the surface, that trigger you, that make you feel, that really question yourself and question your self-worth and question the way that you make decisions, and that cause you to just question things about life in general. So your karmic relationships are going to be that type of soul contract where ultimately you come to a sense of clarity that you need a different outcome. They are, again, to help you close any repetitive cycles, to help you end any sort of power struggle or healing situation in order to help you come to a different place and space in your life. And again, attract a different outcome, attract a different type of person. So that's a karmic soul contract. Karmic relationships, they're going to feel charged. There are always going to be things in those relationships that feel triggering to you. I'm sure you can think of a few people that are top of mind for you right now that have been those people throughout the course of your life. Those are going to be your karmic relationships. And again, they can be family, friends, romantic, etc. Next type of soul contract are soulmate contracts. So soulmate contracts are going to be the love and growth agreements that you enter into with people in this lifetime. And again, soulmates can be any different type of relationship, not just romantic. They can also include friends, teachers, bosses, parents, caregivers, all different types of people, other family members, etc. So your soulmate contracts teach you about love and teach you about evolving in such a way that helps you grow and helps you get closer to your soul essence and remember who you really are. So they support your evolution in a more positive way. That doesn't mean that there won't be challenges or conflicts or disagreements, but it does mean that ultimately there is a deeper depth of love there that you feel. Again, in these soulmate relationships, they're going to feel supportive. Karmic relationships are going to feel more challenging. Soulmate relationships are going to feel more supportive. And these are going to be people who really help you understand yourself better, or who come into your life at a pivotal moment and change everything for you, or who help set you on a course that is really life-changing in a really positive and beneficial way. And soulmate relationships may not last a lifetime. Same with karmic relationships. Hopefully your karmic relationships are relationships where you're able to navigate them with peace and with ease at some level, but your soulmate relationships may not last a lifetime, but they will bring about a level of profound transformation. So they can include what I like to call divine life partners. Divine life partners are the people that you choose to enter into a romantic lifetime partnership with. So when we think of the classic example of someone getting married and being married for life, that's what I like to refer to as a divine life partner, someone who is truly meant to be your partner for life till death do you part, truly, literally. That is what I like to refer to as a divine life partner. Again, it's a romantic relationship and it is a soulmate soul contract. Next, we have the twin flame contracts. Now, this is a really interesting one. I haven't spoken too much about twin flames here on this podcast because it's an experience that I have not had myself personally, so I can't really speak to it at a personal level, but I have supported clients through twin flame relationships. I do know they're real. I do know that they exist. I have channeled information about them through the records in the past. And really what a twin flame contract is it is meant to be a mirror version of you and your soul. So we all are connected to what is called our oversoul. And the oversoul contains all of the different fragments of you, past and present lifetimes, past, present, future lifetimes are all part of your oversoul. So when the oversoul splits and fragments into different lifetimes, usually there's just one version of you happening, like let's say in this timeline on this planet right now. Twin flames, there are going to be two different versions of the oversoul on the planet in that same timeline. So a twin flame contract and relationship is truly two halves of the same soul. Twin flame relationships, we see a lot out there marketed in the spiritual space that talk about these ultimate romantic partnerships who they complete you and they make you whole. And really, I find that it's just marketed to be this sort of gimmicky thing when truly the twin flame path is one of high level soul evolution. It is not a relationship to enter into lightly. And not everybody is going to have a twin flame connection. It's a very small percentage of people. It's a very rare thing. So a lot of people are labeling their karmic soul contracts, their karmic relationships as twin flames, when in reality, it's just a toxic relationship that we're slapping a label on as a twin flame because that relationship has been proven to be difficult and unhealthy. However, what it really is a karmic relationship connected to a past lifetime. So be really careful when you're using the term twin flame. the people who have had twin flame experiences, they know through all levels of consciousness that it is a twin flame connection. And they feel so deeply within themselves. They know beyond a shadow of a doubt who that twin flame person is. And it's a mirrored experience. So again, it's two parts of the same oversoul that's going to feel like a mirror. So when you're in this type of relationship, that person is going to feel like they mirror back to you some of the more difficult parts of yourself, some of the shadows that you may have been afraid to take a look at. It's going to feel like a very pushing and pulling, intense, triggering circumstance that's ultimately here to help both of you grow and evolve. So this sort of experience is one that is going to be a really profound, high-level soul learning experience. And it may not always lead to a romantic partnership. That's another misconception about twin flames out there in the spiritual space, again, is that it's this really intense, passionate, sexual, romantic connection, when in reality, it can be friends. It can be, this relationship can end up spanning different ages. People can be twin flames who are vastly different ages. And again, they're meant to come together to learn the lessons that they need to learn as two parts of the same oversoul. So I see it more as a joint agreement to learn the lessons of the oversoul and less about the romantic sexual partnership. It's more about the evolution of the oversoul, which I know most people don't want to hear because that's not super fun. But from my perspective and from what I've seen with working with clients, the twin flame relationship, that's really ultimately what it is all about. And perhaps for some twin flames, that will lead to a marriage and a beautiful life together and beautiful romantic partnership, because that does exist out there. But I do know that it is very rare. And more likely than not, when people think they're searching for their twin flame, they're actually really searching for their soulmate, divine life partner, relationship, soul contract. Next, we have our sacred soul contracts. So these are relationships that are meant to help you grow and evolve through purpose. So our soulmate relationships are going to be really full of love. There's going to be such a deep connection. You're going to really get each other, understand each other. Our sacred soul contracts are going to be more of our friends, our teachers, our business partners, bosses, coworkers that help teach us things, but that number one, don't feel triggering, because that's going to be more of our karmic partner. And number two, don't feel like this really deep level of attachment and love that the soulmate relationship has. So these are going to be more of our positively oriented and neutrally oriented teachers, friendships, etc. They ultimately bring purpose to our relationships and help us understand something. They help us grow in some way. But we're going to see this as someone who really helps change the course of our life, but in a very purpose-filled way. So I can say, for example, for me personally, a good example of this would be some of the spiritual teachers that I've worked with who have really helped set me on a purposeful path. Some of even my mentors from my corporate days who I really got along well with, who really helped me a lot. I can definitely see those people as being sacred soul contracts for me. These could also include people from my college days, maybe not so much the deep friends, because I see those people as soulmates, but these are going to be more of my acquaintance level friends who helped me. Maybe they told me the right thing that I needed to hear at a certain moment, or maybe they helped me with a project, or maybe they helped me evolve or grow in some way. Those are going to be your sacred soul contracts, your more purpose-oriented driven partnerships. And finally, we also have your familial and ancestral soul contracts. So these are going to be the deep healing, ancestral karmic clearing, familial pattern breaking relationships. And these are going to be your family members. Although I could say that depending on the family situation, it may not be a blood relationship. It could also be a relationship, a family relationship by marriage or adoption or some other way that you're connected with that person, but in a family setting, in a family system. And these relationships are designed to help break those generational patterns. They're here to help you heal that ancestral trauma. So these are going to be those relationships that in your family that are meant to help set your family line on a different course. They're here to, again, help you grow, help you evolve. And sometimes these family relationships may feel a little bit triggering at times. They may feel challenging at times because ultimately you're in those relationships to break karmic family cycles, to be the pattern breakers, to be the curse breakers, to set your family line on a completely different course of action. So they may be challenging, but they're also going to feel deeply rewarding because you're going to feel a sense of like, whoa, I know that I came here to this planet to help heal my mother's family line because of X, Y, and Z. And I know that I chose my mother in that way for a reason. And that's going to be teaching me so much about me and my purpose and what I'm here to do and how I'm meant to evolve through that. So those are going to be your familial and ancestral contracts, which can also be karmic. So there's a lot of overlap between some of these different categories of soul contracts that I've given you. So your family soul contracts can also be karmic. They can also be soulmate contracts. They can also be your sacred teacher soul contracts. And so there's going to be a lot of overlap between these different types. I think there can be a misconception in the spiritual space with soul contracts that there's some sort of like physical book that you can take a look at to find your contracts. It doesn't really work like that. So when I'm channeling information about a soul contract for someone in the records, they're going to give me intuitively information through my channel with things like, what's the past life that caused the root of this? What and how in what ways and how did this relationship impact the client sitting in front of me? What have they learned as a result of the relationship? How has that helped them grow? How has that impacted them emotionally? How have they impacted the other person as a result? What do they need to do in order to move the relationship forward? Is it to let it go? Is it to gain new perspective? Is it to show up differently? Is it to have deeper conversations? Is it to what's the purpose? What's the next step? And so that's really how I read a soul contract and how I take a look at it to help my client understand the role that that person has played in their life and how they are impacting them. Now, your children also are going to be part of some of these different types of soul contracts as well. And that could be a family and ancestral contract. That could also be a soulmate contract. That could also be a karmic contract for someone who feels very triggered by their kids. All of these things are normal. All of these things happen. And ultimately, with kids, it's a whole other conversation and a whole other topic because in my perspective and opinion, children are meant to be children until they reach their adult years. So children are meant to live, they are meant to experience, they are meant to play, they are meant to have fun, they are meant to experience joy and grow. And there will be hard moments for our children. Absolutely. They will go through their own lessons and experiences and karma that they have to heal from. But ultimately, we don't need to know about, well, what's the adult purpose of my child? Because their purpose is to be a kid. So I would say the most common types of soul contracts that I get asked about the most often are, number one, the karmic contracts. Why did this person come into my life in the first place? I want to understand more about this relationship, the past life that caused this situation and circumstance that I'm in now, how I'm meant to heal, grow, and evolve through it, and what I'm meant to do next in order to maybe manifest a better relationship result. And number two, I also get asked about a lot On the more positive end of the spectrum, how do I know this person? What is our connection? I feel such a deep soul bond and connection with this particular person or with my child, and or with my spouse or husband or partner, and I want to know where in our past lifetimes that relationship started and how this person is helping me grow and shift and change today. So those are the two things that I get asked about the most often. And so with the challenging relationships, I want to speak to that for a bit because I want to share some tips and tricks with you on navigating those more challenging relationships. And one of the biggest things that's going to support you in navigating a challenging soul contract, a karmic soul contract, is going to be cord cutting. So cord cutting is a modality that helps us cut the negative cord of attachment between you and a karmic relationship or any relationship, any person that you feel a negative back and forth of energy and emotional exchange between. So cord cutting is a modality that helps us clear that negative emotional exchange between you and someone else. So I like to see cords as almost like an energetic exchange tube between you and someone else. So everything that you feel and hold and harbor negatively within yourself towards someone else gets fed into the cord, and all of the feelings, emotions, negative feelings and thoughts that the other person feels get fed into the cord on their end as well, which creates this negative exchange of energy. And that can be true for all relationships, even the soulmate relationships, even the really positive relationships that we have. There can be this negative back and forth exchange because we're human and because we have emotions, and it's a normal thing to do and to feel. So cord cutting is helpful because it helps cut those negative cords of energy that are feeding into the relationship and that are maybe making the relationship heavier or feel harder or more difficult or more challenging than it ultimately needs to be. Now, I want to say, too, that I think there's a misconception about cord cutting, that when you cut a cord, you are cutting somebody out of your life, which is not true. When we cut cords, we are cutting the negative cord of attachment. We are not cutting the positive cord of attachment. Positive cords of attachment contain the unconditional love, the joy, and the positive feelings and emotions and the exchange between you and another person. So those cords do not get cut when we do a cord cutting. We are only cutting away the negative emotions. So when you do a cord cutting, like let's say, for example, you have a challenging relationship with your mother and you want to feel more free in that relationship and you want to experience more peace in that relationship, by cutting the cord of attachment, it's not going to cut your mom out of your life. And it's certainly not going to cut the experiences of unconditional love that you may have felt from that relationship with your mom throughout the course of your life. But what it will do is it will clear maybe the passive aggressive energy, or maybe some of the guilt that you feel, or maybe some of the anger from some childhood experiences. So cord cutting helps to neutralize those feelings and emotions in between you and the other person. So cord cutting can be really helpful with any type of relationship soul contract, because it helps really refresh the relationship so that you can be on a more neutral ground. So for those life experiences or those relationships where you feel, and there's probably someone coming to your mind right now where you're like, oh, this person, they really bother me, or they really trigger me, or I just can't move forward and I feel such a lack of clarity on what I'm supposed to do in the relationship or how I'm supposed to handle it. Or you just feel so weighed down by how someone has impacted you in the past and you feel that relationship is really heavy. Cord cutting helps clear that exchange so that you feel more neutral and can start the relationship off on a different foot. Or should I say, move the relationship forward in a different way, ideally in a higher vibrational way. Because when we're clearing these lower vibrational feelings and energies, it helps raise the vibration of the container that is the relationship. I am on a journey this year to master my health and feel my absolute best while having consistent high energy levels. And so I decided to get some labs to test to see how my hormones were looking, as well as to check for any imbalances within my body. And so I decided to get lab work done through an incredible company called Joy Wellness. That's spelled Joi Wellness. And you can get your lab work done through this amazing company while also getting a unique supplement regimen just for you to support your health. They also provide a variety of different wellness options and health coaching for helping you get your energy levels back and feel your best. So if you want to do high vibrational lab work like I did, you can use code Emily the Mystic at checkout to get your labs at a discounted rate. So now that we've spoken a bit about cord cutting, you may be wondering to yourself, well, is it possible to change my soul contracts? And the answer to that question is absolutely yes, you can. However, this is a bit of a deeper level of work than a simple cord cutting process. So with soul contract negotiation, the way that I like to go about it is going into the records to help get for my clients information about how the relationship has impacted them, information about the past life karma that's been brought into the relationship, information about what can be shifted or changed in the relationship, etc. So it requires a bit of a higher level of channeling. So depending on your level of advancement when it comes to your channel and connecting to this high level information, you may not necessarily be ready to dive deeper into the soul contracts themselves. Now, one thing that you can do is you can absolutely go into the meditative state. You don't need to be in the Akashic Records to do this, but I do recommend that the records as a modality because they are going to give you the most information. You can go into a meditative state and call forward a spirit guide that you trust and ask questions about a specific relationship in order to get more information about the relationship and how it has impacted you. When it comes to ending soul contracts, sometimes we just have an awareness that we are ready to close the door on a relationship. We are ready to move on. We're ready to cut the ties. We're ready to let that person go. So when a soul contract is ready to be fully released, when it's ready to be completed, you will know. You're going to have this sense that it's time to close the door. It's time to move on. It's time to move forward. And if you think back on your past to relationships that ended abruptly or that dropped out of your life or friendships that you outgrew or that you're just no longer in contact with, that's an example of a soul contract that's completed, that's done. So you don't need to really do much with your soul contracts other than in situations and circumstances of when you feel like there is a need to renegotiate the contract in some way because that person needs to remain in your life for a reason, like a family member or someone that you espouse, someone that you have some sort of tie to, attachment to, where you need to work with the records, work with your spirit guides in order to renegotiate a different situation for the relationship. It's absolutely possible. However, again, it's definitely a higher level of spiritual work than I can teach in a, 30, 40 minute podcast episode. However, it is definitely possible. And if that's something that you have questions about or want to dive deeper into me, I can support you with that through an Akashic Records reading and can support you with that through my Akashic Records certification, which the doors will be opening for that very, very soon. So join the waitlist at the link in the show notes. But what I do want you to know and be aware of is that in the relationships that you have now, that it is absolutely possible to shift the energy of those relationships where you are feeling where you're having and experiencing a difficult time, where you're feeling that negative back and forth of an exchange of energy, where that person is really triggering you, where you feel really drained by someone's energy and you feel like they're really weighing you down, where there's some sort of toxic pattern or relationship cycle. You can absolutely cut those cords. And that's something that is a skill for life that I feel that everyone needs to learn how to do and learn how to cut the cords of negative attachment. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be teaching a more in-depth workshop about cord cutting and the process, working with your guides to navigate this level of healing in order to find peace and come to a greater sense of common perspective in all of your relationships. So I have an upcoming cord cutting workshop that many people have been asking me for. So that's why I knew that I needed to offer this. And the link will be below in the show notes. If you happen to catch this episode live, you may be able to join the cord cutting workshop live, as it is happening on Tuesday, April 29th at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. However, it will be recorded and we will be doing some live healing. So you can absolutely re-listen to the recording and you will have the cord cutting meditation experience that I will be guiding the group through. You will have that access to that for life so that you can continue to do this work, cut those cords in those relationships that do feel challenging, that do feel triggering, and that can help you resolve maybe the situations, places, and spaces in your relationships in your life that you feel like you need to be set on a different path, a different timeline, take a different course. So that's what the cord cutting workshop is going to do. So with all of that being said, I just want to wrap up this episode with a couple of final remarks about soul contracts and cord cutting. So soul contracts are not meant to punish you or hurt you. I want you to see the high level Akashic perspective, which is that soul contracts, we enter into them before we even come into this lifetime because we want to grow, we want to change, we want to transform, we want to evolve. So ultimately, they exist for your soul's highest evolution and purpose. However, we do have free will to change how we show up in those relationships. And a way that we can use our free will and the power of energy healing is cord cutting in order to help shift the dynamic of the relationship in order to attract a different result. This work I find is so powerful because when you decide to do a cord cutting and when you decide to do this energy work for yourself, it impacts you so deeply that all of a sudden you start showing up differently in the relationship and the other person responds to you as a result in a different way. So situations and circumstances from your past or from your past lives that may have gotten in the way of you really showing up as the highest expression and essence of what that relationship was really designed to be in the first place. We can really get back to that by doing cord cutting and by doing this deep energetic healing because, again, it sets your relationship off on a whole new path, on a whole new course towards the future. So I would say if you are feeling like there is something unresolved, a relationship that's unresolved in your life that you need a deeper clarity and perspective on, come to the cord cutting workshop because we're going to get really clear on where that relationship came from. We're going to be doing some past life work in the meditation healing that I'm going to be leading you through. So we're going to get clear on the past life karma that created the contract in the first place. And we're going to be getting clear on how that person has impacted you positively and negatively so that we can release the emotions, we can gain clarity in the higher perspective and wisdom, and we can move forward in the relationship in a whole different way so that that person responds to you differently and you respond to them differently. And ultimately, it could lead you to higher evolution and a better chance at a more loving, more nurturing, more peaceful relationship. So I hope you learned a lot from this episode. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. And I'm excited to guide you through the cord cutting workshop. So make sure you check that out. The link will be below in the show notes. And other than that, I wish you the best of luck with navigating eclipse season. I know it's brought about so many energetic shifts and changes our way so far, and we're only just getting started. So I can't wait to be here to support you every single step of the way. I'm sending you so much love. Enjoy the rest of your day. It's 1:11 p.m. my time as I end this episode. Juicy. And I'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.